Welcome to episode 1 of Ignite Inspire podcast, the show where we explore the truth to success by interviewing leading entrepreneurs to find out what it takes to ignite success. In this episode, we're lucky to have with us Sam Naseer, a sales and marketing guru with over 20 years experience in running successful sales operations and award-winning companies. And one of the reasons I wanted to get Sam on as my first guest on this new podcast was because Sam being an expert in sales, me personally being an expert in sort of organic SEO marketing, and I think we can discuss and sort of debate, what is more important to a thriving business? Is it the sales operation? Is it the marketing operation? Is it a combination of both? And can a business survive in these uncertain times if they don't have both of those core competencies within their business sort of established? So to get started then, Sam, first and foremost, what is your favorite morning drink? You're an early riser. I know that you wake up very, very early in the morning and you work long hours. Personally, I'm a black coffee drinker. Are you a coffee drinker?
I am indeed. Yes, I always start my day with a coffee. White coffee.
Is it black instant? Is it instant coffee or is it a?
If I'm allowed to say, it's Nescafe. So,
right, okay. So nothing fancy.
I'm a Nescafe drinker. Yeah, I can't do the filtered coffee. It's a little bit too strong for me. So
yeah, I started getting into the filtered coffee myself, and the problem is it takes quite a bit of prep. It's like some serious equipment you need, and it's like sometimes it's just quicker to pop in. So awesome. That's the most important question out the way. So do you want to give everyone a bit of an overview about who you are, sort of what you do, and what your background is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So thank you very much for the great introduction there. I'm Sam Naseer. I have got sort of 22 years experience in sales and marketing. Just to give you guys a bit of background, I started my career 22 years ago as a cold caller for kitchens and conservatory and timeshare companies back in the day. And I stuck with that, the cold calling piece. It was B2C, moved on to B2B. I did that for a number of years, then was introduced to the corporate world. And I started generating leads for a company in Uxbridge called Hart Hanks, American marketing agency. Worked with them a couple of years and realized quite quickly that I'm pretty good at this. I'm pretty good at picking up the phone and speaking to prospects and building relationships. So did that, and then I went on to work for a software and IT company based in Buckinghamshire. Stuck with them for 10 years, actually. That was a really good run. And then sort of went and worked with other IT software companies. Again, business development role, grew my career, moved up the ladder to sales manager, marketing manager. Now, sales and marketing, and I'm sure we're going to have this conversation, it's one of those things that sales and marketing are always against each other, but I've always tried to link the two together where possible, because when they're joined up together, that's where we see the sort of the best success. I wanted to go in as sales and marketing manager because I feel I've got experience in both. And then I set up my own company, which was SLS.
What year was that?
This was back in 2016, 17.
Oh, wow.
So I made the jump of starting my own business, just myself to start with. And huge risk. Never owned a business or set up a company before. And I've been doing that for 5 to 6 years. Again, running it's a sales and marketing operation. So I head up sales and marketing, working with some great folk. I think that in a nutshell is sort of me and where I started and where I am now.
And obviously, just as a testimony to what Sam does, the first time I met Sam, I was at an exhibition trying to pitch people my services, and he sort of swanned over with his sales crew and managed to pitch me pretty much there on the spot about their services. So Sam really does have sort of an excellent array of sales skills, especially in environments which are uncomfortable. And I think so many people, I've done cold calling myself, I did despise it with a passion. Yeah. But I do think it has its place, and I think it's a rite of passage in a way, which I think a lot of people will not do now, because it's just in this generation, people just don't like that rejection. So I think even for me, I'm not a big fan of going up and pitching people cold. Hence why I do marketing, right? I prefer people to come to me and then I can close them. But obviously, one thing which SLS, which is your company, does is which really I quite liked about it, because you sort of put your money where your mouth is with the guaranteed amount of leads. And from my experience, I've not seen any companies do that previously, not in this space anyway. Was that something you did consciously? And obviously, I know that you scaled that initially prior to COVID very, very quickly. Do you think that was sort of a cornerstone to that growth? Is that guarantee?
Yeah, 100%. You know, I'm quite ethical in the way that I do things, and I have sat on your side of the table where I have been looking for lead generation companies. And there's a lot of great companies out there. But when you sit down and talk to them about, you know, I'm going to part with this much money, what am I going to get in return? Yes, you're going to do the calling and you're going to generate leads, but how many leads are you going to generate? What is going to be the ROI? What am I going to see out of those leads? And a lot of companies, unfortunately, I found were not able to guarantee anything. No. The only thing they guaranteed is how much money they want to take off me. And that was it. And like I said, I'm quite ethical in the way that I do things. If we're going to work with a company and they're going to spend money with us, we need to be able to put some sort of guarantee in place to say, hey, you know what, you're going to spend this with us. This is what we're going to give you in return. And then you as a client can work out, actually, you know, if I get this many leads, this is the money I'm going to make. So this is what we were doing, but we've actually gone one step further now, where we don't only guarantee leads, but we're now saying that we will guarantee sales. So we can do this because of the experience we've got. Like you said, you know, sales is all about building relationships, right? You need to be able to go up to someone, whether it's at an event, face to face, or picking up the phone. And you need to just have an open conversation. You know, this is, you know, it's Sam, this is what I do. You know, what do you do as a business? You know, is there any synergy there? Is there, you know, do you have a requirement? Can we talk? And some people just don't like that cold call. They just don't like it. It actually scares the crap out of them, speaking to someone they don't know. And I love it. I love building relationships and speaking to people. So what we're doing now is I think you're right. The guarantee and the risk-free service that we provide it's a massive cornerstone for us. It's changed the game completely. It's put a lot of lead gen companies out there on edge because they're not able to offer the same guarantee. So, you know, we say, you know, if you spend this much money with us and you don't make the money that you spend with us back, then we'll refund 100% of your money. And why shouldn't we? If it hasn't worked, why should you have to lose out? So
it's pretty impressive, because obviously when you were saying you were sort of, there's the guarantee on sort of sales, I guess from my experience with, because I've had a lot of people which often come to me and I can rank in most niches on Google, and they often say like, well, you get us ranking and then we'll take, you know, you can take percentage of everything we sell. And the reason I've always stayed away from that is because you can get leads to come in, but obviously the sales process, what they have internally, you know, it's like, well, how can I be in control of that? It could be they answer the phones terribly. It could be they have a, you know, terrible customer service. It could be that they're overpriced or underpriced, or they have terrible reviews. So is that something that you'd be concerned about? Because obviously if you're putting all of your skill set, all of your resources in to get X amount of leads for a company, you know, are you now a bit more inclined to help them through that sale, you know, sort of the end-to-end sales process? Because I know previously when we worked together, you were more, we'll get you X amount of leads, we'll make sure they're qualified, they'll have this criteria, but then it's sort of over to you. So do you see yourself moving more into being an all-round sales solution?
Yeah, well, to be honest, that's where we are right now. So that what you're talking about is what we were doing sort of 4 years ago. What we do now is exactly that. We find that we generate a really good qualified opportunity, and then we hand it over to the client, and they sometimes struggle with the sales process because maybe they don't have the level of experience that we do. So what we do is we hold their hand during the sales journey. So we'll generate them a lead or an opportunity. We'll set up a conference call or a web meeting or a face-to-face meeting. We'll then join that meeting with them to hand the opportunity over. And then once the client, they pitch their products and their services, and then we'll nurture that opportunity. So
within that process, then, 'cause I'm just thinking for you as a business owner, I guess the thing which shouts out to me is then you're potentially elongating the amount of work that you're going to have to do for that customer. Are you then, if you help through that sales process, is that something that you are billing extra for, or is it something that potentially you're taking a small commission for if they close, or how does that work?
Yeah. The only way that we can see both businesses grow together, which is SLS and our client, is if we take a commission on sale. So we will put as much effort in. All the guys that work at SLS, they've got 5, 10, 15 years worth of sales and marketing experience. So they'll work with the client to convert that lead into a sale if our help is needed. We're very flexible in the way that we work. It might just be that you need a lead and we'll leave it as that, or you need the help through the sales process. So once we've worked with you, once it's converted into a sale, once the money's in the bank for the client, then at that point we take a small percentage of what we've made. And it's so everyone wins. A win-win situation really for us and the client. It's a bit of a no-brainer.
Okay, then. So obviously that's a little bit, I guess, about you and what you do. But say if someone's listening to this and they go, don't really want to outsource it. I want to either do it, or say I'm by myself. I want to do some cold calling by myself, or they're thinking about, say, hiring in someone within their team to do it internally. Actually, let's start with someone, say they've set up their business. They don't want the overhead of employing someone. They've never done sales before. What would you recommend them to do outside of hiring a lead generation company? Like, what would you say the first steps would be? Would it be cold calling, or would you say they should maybe do LinkedIn marketing to try and warm things up? Like, what would your recommendation be from years experience within this?
Yeah, I think jumping into cold calling is probably not the best idea. The last thing you want to do, especially if you've got a good company, a good brand, is if you don't have experience in cold calling and you've never picked up the phone before, let's just say a lot of the guys that we work with, the clients, they're very techie in what they do. They're not salespeople. So I wouldn't just pick up the phone and start cold calling, because there's a chance that you might give your company a bad name if you do a bad job, which we've seen happen. I would say first thing is get your branding and your marketing in order. So make sure you've got a good website. Make sure if you're doing B2B marketing, LinkedIn is absolutely amazing. Make sure you've got a good LinkedIn page. Create some graphics, create some videos. There's some great tools out there now. It's not very expensive. Create some messaging and start posting. Start creating brand awareness. Get companies to know.
Would you say this on LinkedIn? Would you say LinkedIn then? Like, is that when you're saying post?
It really depends on the product or service you're providing. But what I have found over the last couple of years is LinkedIn is the biggest social platform businesses. I think Facebook, Twitter, Insta, they're all great as well. But personally speaking, with what we do, which is we target organizations, it's B2B marketing, B2B sales, LinkedIn is massive. So I would really focus on LinkedIn. There's a great solution there, Sales Navigator. Have a look into that to target the right level of prospects for your business. And then once people start engaging with you and they start liking your posts and they start messaging you, at that point, it's a warmer lead. Pick up the phone and speak to those prospects. If you see the same person liking your posts, drop them a message. Say, can we arrange time to talk?
That's a really interesting thing then, because obviously the old way of, especially when you watch the old sort of the classic sales film, The Wolf of Wall Street, etc., is they're given like a big black book of leads, and then it's like you've got to make 400 calls a day. So would you say that type of cold calling is not necessarily dead, but is outdated? And would you say actually really cold calling now, in order to be done effectively, you should leverage third-party tools like LinkedIn in order to use things like Sales Navigator to pre-qualify people and then to sort of warm them up, but not in a way of, because one of the things I hate about LinkedIn is the amount of spam you get in your mailbox where someone's like, hey, I'm just connecting, we do X, Y, Z. Do you think that works or as well? Like, what's your thoughts on that type of approach? Because that personally does my head in.
Yeah. I know what you mean, Adam. So it's a yes or a no, yes and a no answer, to be honest. That approach works for startup businesses. So doing the brand awareness, making sure you've got a nice website and a nice social page on LinkedIn. I would do that if you have no cold calling experience at all.
Yeah.
Okay. You're brand new. If you have got cold calling experience and you've got sales and marketing experience, then by all means, I will say that cold calling will never die. Yeah,
Okay.
cold calling will never die. I've been doing it for 22 years, and it's just as valuable today as it was back then.
Yeah.
So picking up the phone and speaking to prospects is probably the most effective way of generating leads and opportunities.
Yeah.
You can send an email out to someone, and if they reply back, you're going to get this much information. But if you have a conversation with them and you've got them for 5 minutes, you're going to get so much out of that conversation.
Yeah.
And it same goes with the socials. It's just there to create brand awareness. And if people start responding and liking your posts, then pick up the phone. That works too. But
so would you say it's still cold calling when you're doing it? Because obviously with your team of people, when you're telling them to do it, is a big part of that them going out and finding the people on LinkedIn, pre-qualifying them, warming up, and then calling them? Or is it obviously a combination of that? Or is it hit big numbers and then you're playing sort of the numbers game with a qualified list from someone you've bought them off, like a Credit Safe or an Experian?
Yeah. So I don't think it's the approach of, you've got to sit there making 400 calls a day. Because good luck to you if that's what you do. What we do is a mixed marketing approach. We do cold calling, we do telemarketing, we do social media marketing, we do e-marketing. We do networking at events. So it's one of those things. There's no right or wrong answer. But if you are going to sit there cold calling, then you can't be sort of cold calling blind. You need to know who your prospects are. You need to know who your target market is. And you need to get that understanding very quickly before you pick up the phone. Who do you want to go after? Who do you want as your client? Who's going to benefit most from your products and services?
Do you do that then? Because obviously a big part of what I often say to people is most people and companies, they don't even know who their customers actually are. They don't have like any pre-made demographics. And obviously you say to people like create a persona type thing. I think that's often chucked around as it's a very like floaty-doty, create a marketing persona, like the type of thing which is just chucked out at events. It sounds great, but is that something that you think is actually extremely valuable, that people understand like, okay, I'm going after personal trainers and they are 25 to 45 and they've done this and they have this and they have that, and pre-qual sort of in your head understanding who you're going out on and then tailoring it to them?
Yeah, I think it's very important to create a sales strategy. You need to know who your target market is. But at the same time, you need to be very flexible with yourself. And you've got to be ready to tweak that because the market's always changing. But you can never go in blind. Even if you say there's these 3 target markets that I want to go after, stick with them for 2 to 4 to 6 months and see what results you get before you start tweaking. The worst kind of people are, they say this is the target market, this is the persona. They do it for 2 days and they think, oh, okay, this has not worked. Let me try something else. They don't give it enough time. So I would say, identify your target market. It doesn't have to be, it's this vertical market, it's, size of company, it's this company doing this much turnover. Have a variety. 2 or 3 worked really well. That's what I did. And then hit those really hard and stick with it for 3 to 6 months.
And track the data.
Yeah. And then let's sit down and evaluate the results. But it's very important to have a sales strategy. It's very important to have a marketing strategy. Because without a strategy, you're just wandering blind.
It's one of those things where my stuff's organic SEO, right? But I understand with Facebook ads, and when people used to ask me to do that, and I don't personally do it, I do my own, and that's something which I'm currently doing at the minute. But I think the thing which is just shouts out to me, the biggest mistake people make with Facebook ads is the fact they just don't spend enough money. And then that sounds crazy to some people, but it's like, how can you test how effective something is with such a small data set? Like you need to have like you said, 2 months, 2 months or 3 months worth of data, or you need to spend, say, £3,000 or £5,000 on a selection of ads in order for you to actually have enough data that you can actually quantify, like, okay, if I make 50 calls, I get this many of that, and then they buy, etc. Or if I spend £3,500 or £4,000 on ads per month, we get X amount of leads, and from leads that we get 2 of these purchases, and from those purchases, we get X amount. It's like, it's impossible for you to do that if you just spending £100 or £200. So I guess the same is in yours. So let's say if there was someone who has done, let's say someone like me who's done cold calling before, not massively fond of it, but still it's part of their business. They still want to do little bits and bobs to be effective. Obviously, one of the things I think, which again, with the guarantee you have, and I understand when you have your guarantee, obviously you're very confident, your sales skills, but when you start scaling that with your team, with the individuals you have within your team, guaranteeing that they have the capabilities to be able to, say, get 10 leads or whatever per month. What would you say if I was going to pick up the phone, or say if someone listening was going to pick up the phone and they've done a bit of cold calling, they're confident on the phone, what are like the key things on that initial cold call which could get people to allow, for a callback, or for you to send some information, or to book in a further call? What would you say is like the key thing that you teach your team?
The key thing that I tell all of the guys that I work with, or even people that don't work with me, is in the first call, never try selling. Don't try selling your products or services in the first call. It's the worst mistake you can possibly make. The client, the prospect will immediately switch off.
Yeah.
It's about, like I said, for me, it's always been about building relationships, right?
Okay.
Even when I met you the first time, I didn't kind of just jump in there. We understood what you were doing as a business, where are you from, what are you doing? And then you can start picking up, you can start ticking the box a little to see, this organization is actually worth speaking to, he might do something with me in the future. So in the first call, never try selling your products or services, build that relationship. Find out what they're doing at the moment, what's working for them, what's not working for them, and then maybe set up a second call to introduce your products and services. Never bombard a client with PDFs, presentations, because they're never going to read it. They haven't got a clue what you do. You're just another cold call, and that's not the way it works. That's not the way it works for us here at SLS anyway.
Do you know with your qualifying then? Because obviously a big part, a lot of people say, send me some information X, Y, Z. What are like do you have any sort of magic questions that you'll always ask to? Because I guess a big part of it is pre-qualifying people out of your funnel so you can stop wasting your time. So do you have any sort of magic questions and also as well, you need to obviously make sure that they're qualified, right? You need to make sure they have budget and all the rest of it. What are your sort of, are there any certain ways that you pitch questions in order to get that information out in an elegant way? Because I think everyone's had that with a cold caller where they've called them up and you're already a bit annoyed, you're listening to them out, and then they're like, oh, can I ask you some questions? You're like, oh, God, go on then. And then boom, they hit you and they sound like the Grand Inquisitor, like, how much do you make per year? Or what? And you're like, bugger off. Like, I'm not telling you anything. You close up. So the ways, what recommended ways would you say of getting that information out of a customer without sort of pissing them off?
No, 100%. It's a good question. So the first thing we do is again, it comes down to experience, right? Which is why people outsource their lead gen to experienced companies like us. You never make a question sound like a question. It's always more of a discussion. And to be honest, if you're having the right discussion, your question's already being answered. We could sit here and talk about your business and what you're doing. And you could say, I set up, 4 or 5 years ago. I'd be like, oh, okay, how's it going? What have you tried in terms of marketing? Oh, I did a bit of cold calling, didn't really work out. So now you're not asking them directly what they've done. Have you done cold calling, yes or no? They're giving you the answers because you're having that right discussion. Yeah. Because you're right, people receive these type of calls all day long. And you're very lucky if they can answer your call. But if they do, you want to make it it needs to be very consultative. You need to make it sound like you're actually helping them. So yes, you need to have a list of questions that you need to ask, but don't ever think you're going to get the answers in the first call. It's never going to happen. It's just about having that discussion, find out what they've been doing, what's working for them, what's not working for them. But most of all, you've got a solution. They've got to have a problem. So you need to find out, what problems have they got? How can I help you? And that's the key. It's about helping other people. This is why I do what I do here at SLS Lead Gen. 100%, honestly speaking, I love helping businesses. If I can help you generate leads, convert my leads into sales, and watch your business grow, that honestly gives me true happiness. I've helped a business grow to the next level, and a client and a prospect needs to be able to see that you're helping them, whether it's a product, whether it's a CRM solution, whether it's SEO services, or whether it's lead generation. It's all about helping people and having that discussion, not sitting there with a question sheet thinking, I've got to tick all of these off. So that's the advice I would give.
It's a good, what you just said there resonated with me, because we went for our quarterly company meeting on last Friday, and woke up hungover, as you do from business when you go out with your company. And I was heading out, got a call, answered it. And obviously it's a sales guy, I think from Vodafone. And he's like, how you doing today? And I'm like, I'm hungover right now. And like, rather than just being like, oh, you're hungover right now. Okay, get that. You must have had a heavy night. I'll call back later on, or I'll call back another day. It's just because it wasn't in his script. He's like, okay, great. How do you know? Like, have you considered this? And I thought it just shows like he's just got this script in front of him. And it was just like, and if he'd have responded with something funny, or something which made me laugh, I would have probably took his call later on. But at that point, you don't care about me,
you're not listening.
Customer. You're not listening to the fact I have a headache. I've been up to 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to talk about Wi-Fi at like 10 a.m. Right? I want a McDonald's breakfast and to feel sorry for myself. So I think that's a really good point of what you were saying, which is like listening, and remember that ultimately you're there to solve a problem, and you shouldn't, and not everyone should be closed. Even if you can close everyone. Do you think that's one of the reasons sales has, I guess, especially I think in the UK, I think it does have a bit of a taint to it. I think maybe from years gone by, which is, I think people not look down, but you're a salesperson, a sleazy salesperson. Do you think that's why? Because people sort of prioritize, I guess, greed over actually making sure you're actually helping someone? Or do you think that's transitioning away now, and that actually, because I think sales is probably the most noble profession you can do, right? I think it's the backbone of every economy, but a lot of people, they don't like salespeople.
You're right, they don't, and it has got a bit of a bad reputation. But to be honest, people, when they're speaking to you, they realize within sort of 15, 30 seconds what type of person you are, what type of salesperson you are. Like you did with that call that you had, you realized within 30 seconds that actually I don't want to have this conversation. This guy's just after the money. He just wants my money. He wants to close the deal. Yeah. Whereas I think salespeople these days have realized it's not going in for the hard sell. I know we all have targets. We've just completed a quarter now, and everybody was, they're on the phone. Let's get the deal in. Let's get it signed. But people buy from people, right? They don't buy from salespeople. People buy from people. Yeah, and I would say sales. It's a yes or a no. Yes, it has got a bad name, but there are some great salespeople out there.
How do you motivate your team? Just on double down on that, then how do you motivate your team in that, say, last week? I've never been a sales manager, right? I've only ever run my own companies. How do you? And I don't have an in-house sales team, so I can't answer this question. So how do you really motivate them? You need to hit this target. What is it, like buy or die type mentality? When then at the same time you're telling them to be ethical. Like how do you keep the balance?
Yeah, so I'll answer this question when I was a salesperson working for another company. Touch wood here at SLS. We always hit our targets before month end or quarter end. Okay. It's one of the things I say is don't leave it to the last day. Don't leave it to the last week.
That's a good
why would you do that? Treat every day as quarter end. Let's try and get the deal closed. And really only work on opportunities where you think they're going to close. If you're having to chase people and, they're continuously giving you the same answers, you kind of know as professional salespeople, this isn't really going anywhere. And you know what? You're more likely to get a sale from someone who, says to you, Sam, I'll get back to you when I'm good and ready.
Yeah.
And you give them that space.
Yeah.
If you leave them, if they say that to you, I'll get back to you, and you call them again the next day,
Mm-hmm.
and you're calling them every day, even if they were going to buy from you, they're not going to buy from you anymore. So don't ruin the relationship. Yeah, give them the space that they need. I'm sure they've got reasons, but just keep in touch. For 2 weeks. So, I've moved away from what you were asking. So, the question that you asked, so don't leave it to the last day. And if we do, so when I was a sales guy, it was very much right. Okay, the board goes up. There's a clock next to it. Every minute counts. Every hour counts. Get on the phone and get the deal closed. There was all sorts going on in our office. We'll chuck an iPad at you. There'll be money thrown. But what I felt like the sales directors didn't realize, it doesn't matter what you throw at us. If the client's not ready to buy, they're not going to buy it. There's nothing that we can do. We can't bribe the client to sign the contract today. And it's one of those things where it can get very uncomfortable and tough in a sales environment during the end of the quarter, at the end of the month when you've got sales targets to hit. But the way that I work with my guys is I have a morning meeting with them. We sit down in the morning, we have a proper weekly catch up, we have a monthly catch up, and we look at the pipeline. We think, okay, you know what can we close? It might be a pricing objective. It might be that, there's terms in the contract that are not aligning up with them. So what I'd say is treat every day as your last day. Okay, when it comes to sales quarter end or sales month end, and just go out of your way to help the client. Don't turn into a pushy salesperson at the end of the quarter and ruin that relationship that you've built over the months and months and months or the years that you've been speaking to that prospect. Yeah,
it is a great point. I had the same thing as well, because I do think a lot of from my own experience, I think a lot of value is in the follow-up. But I think it's how you do the follow-up. And I was explaining last night, actually, to my fiance about there was a customer who was ready to sign, and then Omicron came out, and it just wasn't there in the events business, and it just wasn't the right time for them. And we tried to get the deal over the line. We gave them very flexible terms, more flexible than we normally give, because we knew that industry was getting hit quite hard. Obviously, at the end of the day, then we left it, and it was just like a checkup every month. Drop them a text, how's it getting on? Drop them an email saying, look, we're reopening for business, like the countries are reopening, the economy, etc. And then sent them one, probably over the last quarter, probably 4 or 5 touch points. Not really with much back, maybe with and then he emailed last night like, hey, Adam, thanks for checking back in with me. It's been busy, ready to go ahead now. And it's just one of those where you think, and it is great, and it does make you feel, I guess there's a fine line between it though, isn't there? There's a fine line between following up to the stage that you become a nuisance, but then following up because, let's be honest, you think you're remembering. Like, it's the same thing like when you're selling to someone and it's like, do they even remember my name? It's one of those things. It's like everyone thinks they're more important than they actually are. And it's like those people have businesses to do. So I guess it's finding the balance. And like you said, it's keeping that touch point there so that they remember you, but then you don't become a nuisance, because there's nothing worse than like a nuisance sales guy calling.
Well, that's what I said to you, Adam. It's sort of all about building that relationship. Yeah, it's about having conversations. It's about having conversations that they'll actually remember having with you.
Precisely.
The question that you need to ask yourself when you're speaking to a potential prospect is, do you remember the last conversation you had with them? Or do you need to read your notes in a CRM system? Because if you can't remember the conversation, they're not remember you either. Mm-hmm. So, with a client, I know the last time I spoke to them, and if they're watching this, they're going to know exactly who they are. But, they had a chest infection and they had to take 7 days off work. And this is literally before we're going to get the contracts out. And there is no way that I am going to contact that prospect when they're not well. It's just not going to happen. Even though they've said that they're working, it's just not going to happen. Again, it comes back to the way that people do things. And like I said, I'm quite...
And your ethics.
So
can I ask you a quick question then, which was obviously, because I know that actually I started my business quite early, but what was I guess you started your business slightly later. So you actually worked as a sales manager for quite a period of time, didn't you, running before you made that jump to your own business? And I think, we all know sales managers which have telesales teams that, they're all paid very, very well. So if there's anyone right now who's listening, say, who was in a sales role and they've been doing it for 10, 15 years or whatever, they feel like they've done it. What would you say to them about that jump from being like, I'm going to turn away the £100,000 salary and a nice car and the phone contracts, all that comfort, in order to suddenly go, oh God, I'm back to square one by myself, got to make calls by myself, got to get customers by myself, and I don't have any wage whatsoever. Is that right for everyone to do? Or do you think it takes a certain type of person and certain mentality to actually jump at that? And should some people just stay where they are?
Yeah. Again, that's a really good question. You've got all the good questions today, Adam.
So all off my head, but none of them which I sent to you either.
I'm sure. So don't jump into starting up your own business if you are not passionate about what you do. If you're doing it for the money, stick with your 9-to-5 sales job where you're raking it in and you're getting a good sort of 100k base, 200k OTE. I did it personally because I wanted to help a number of businesses. I wanted to go out there and make a difference. Mm-hmm. I was working for one company and my previous 2 companies were calling saying, can we get you back? And I was thinking, how can I work with all these companies at the same time? Yeah. And the only way I could do that was to set up my own business. So I would say, if you're going to set up your own business, make sure you've got a good reputation in the market. Yeah. Don't set up a business just because you think you're good. Yeah. I would say make sure you've got a financial backing, but to be honest, I didn't have a penny to my name when I started my business. No. Yeah. It was a risk that I took, a risk that touchwood has paid off. But at the same time, I did it because I'm very passionate about lead generation. If you speak to any of my partners, clients, friends, colleagues, family, they'll tell you Sam's mad about lead gen. He loves sales, he loves marketing. We could do this podcast for the next 24 hours and the conversation would end. Going. Yeah. So be passionate about what you do before you set up your own business. Don't do it just for the money. You can get a really good paid job and go out there because you want to make a difference. But that would be my advice to someone who's thinking about starting their own business. Yeah.
So just a quick one then. Obviously, when you set up your lead gen company at SLS, what were the strategies that you implemented? Did you put your money where your mouth is in cold call? I know you came up to me, so that's that's face to face, which is brutal way of doing it. It's like sort of door to door, and one of the hardest. But what would you? Was it all cold calling and all outbound, or did you implement marketing as well? Obviously, quite a few people will be listening to this from a marketing background. There'll be that age-old question, which is like, what's more important, sales or marketing? So was it a combination of both? And I know obviously the LinkedIn side's a little in between, or were you just very, very heavy on the outbound sales side?
Yeah, so there was a process that I went through. So I made sure I had my marketing stuff in order first. Okay. So obviously not having a huge amount of budget, I got a chap who was a friend who created a website for me. Yeah. So I had some sort of online presence. Mm-hmm. I was already on LinkedIn. Yeah. At that time, didn't have very many connections, but I had some presence. I created a SLS LinkedIn page, and that was it. And then after I did that, I literally just picked up the phone.
Really?
I did it myself. I was by myself for the first 3 to 4 months. Yeah. And I was just cold calling for SLS myself. Now, luckily, some of my ex-employees, who I'd worked with, they heard that I'd set my own business up and they knew how good I was at cold calling. So they immediately came on as my first clients.
That's good.
And they said, yes, Sam, you know what, if you can do what you've already done for us, then that'd be great. So, but I was picking up the phone and we work with a lot of IT and software companies. So I was calling IT and software companies based in the East Midlands area. Yeah. Just to say, hey, this is what I do. This is what I've done. Are you thinking about sourcing? Could I come over to your offices and have a coffee with you? Have a chat? And it wasn't always a yes, but if you know me, I never give up. I'll keep going and I'll keep trying. And then I realized that there's exhibitions and events locally. and that's where I met you. I thought, okay, let me go there and do the gutsy thing, and go speak to everybody here who's here to sell, who's actually paid to sell. So everybody that was at the exhibition that had a stand, I thought, why are these guys here? They're here because they want leads, right?
That's smart.
Yeah. So I thought, let me just go to them and let's just speak to them. Say, all right, you're doing this. Have you done cold calling? Have you done lead generation? And sometimes you just need to step outside the box and just think about different things you could do. And again, you have to be confident within yourself to go have those, because if you're not confident and you come across badly, it's going to ruin the reputation of your company, right?
Yeah.
So I literally picked up the phone, did my cold calling, went to exhibitions, and I did everything myself. I did all the cold calling piece. I've got a website, social media, and that's where it started. And then after that, we got a few clients in. I made that massive jump. It's scary for everyone taking on their first recruit. Having to pay someone a basic wage, and the rest is history, to be honest.
How important is it of keeping your overheads down in those early 3 to 6 months, or do you think people should go all out at it?
Again, it depends on your personal situation. If you've got millions in the bank, then of course go for it. Don't recruit as many people as you want. But I think most people are in my shoes, where they've got a small saving, and they want to make it big. And I think it's very, very important to keep your overheads low. Don't get too excited about creating the most amazing website, spending thousands of pounds on it. Get a website, a couple of pages, spend a few £100. Get your social media page up on LinkedIn. It costs nothing. Look at all the free services. Connecting with people on LinkedIn costs nothing. Messaging people on LinkedIn costs nothing. Picking up the phone, apart from your phone bill, costs nothing. So,
what about your direction with Facebook ads? Have you ever gone into all Facebook ads or paid ads or even SEO? Is that something that you would, I know not necessarily advise, but is that something you've implemented yourself? And where do you see that in the line of sort of key priorities for a business looking to get leads and close sales? Is that something which you should look at longer term and you should stick to the fundamentals of hard selling initially, or is that something which should just be interchangeable at the same time?
I think it needs to be interchangeable. I think it depends on the business and the sales and marketing strategies that you have in place. I think we've had discussions about SEO, and it's something definitely that we're looking into with yourself right now. But I think it's not something to do from day one.
Interesting.
If you've just started a business and your website's 2 days old, depending on and more than anybody else how much it costs for SEO, it varies. It comes back to that question. Keep your overheads low. Don't go there and start having massive bills and when you're not earning as much. Do what you can yourself for free. Use your own resource, use yourself as your resource, and scale your business up. And then when you get to that point where you're making profit, then start spending that profit back into the business to grow the business to the next level. Awesome. So that's what I would suggest. There's a lot of marketing sort of initiatives out there and strategies out there and things you can do, Facebook ads, Google ads. But I think there's a time for it, and you need to know where that is. And that's where I come back to saying you've got to have that sales and marketing strategy. You need to know when you're going to do what, but you've got to be ready that things will fall over and you'll have to go back and tweak things and change things.
Definitely. So just quickly then, we'll start wrapping things up. So obviously we've spoke about how you've had a lot of success. You started your business again. You've had a lot of success. Obviously one side of entrepreneurship and being a business owner is it can be a very lonely place sometimes at the top. What would you say has been the toughest time, and what have you learned from that for staying ahead of the competition and moving forward?
I would say I think the toughest time for our business was when we were going through the whole pandemic and the lockdown. And I think as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, sometimes it's difficult depending on the team that you have around you. But if it's a small business, you're the director, you're right at the top, and let's just say all you've got is sort of callers. It's it's very difficult to share those emotions and those struggles with other people, and it does become a lonely place. But I guess that's where family steps in, and friends around you are there for support. But I think it's very important to have a great team around you. And again, you don't do this at the very beginning. You do this as your business grows. Have a good leadership team. You will not have all the answers all the time. You'll have a vision. There'll be ways that things you want to do, but then something like COVID will come up, and it'll knock you down, and you'll get back up and it'll knock you down again. And sometimes you just need to take a break. You need to take a step back from the business, which is what I did. And you need to think, okay, you know what, how can we come back to the market? How can we make this bulletproof? If COVID happens again, then how are we going to make sure that we don't go through what we went through? And to be honest, if nothing else, Adam, it makes you stronger.
Yeah.
So,
well, one of the things I've seen you doing at pivoting, and I think that's a big. I did the same thing. So mid-pandemic, I left full service agency and pivoted just to do one key service, which is SEO, and just focus on that and do one thing well. Because personally, myself, I've seen that times were changing, and I think jack of all trades, master of none type agency models are going to soon have their day. And I think actually what people want during a pandemic or financially uncertain times is like, I want an expert in one thing, like sort this one problem out for me. And that was obviously a big thing. But one thing I've seen that you did and pivoting, which I think is probably one thing which I've learned the most, was how before you started making the transitions into SLS, you were so much on the market research side. Like there was so many like questionnaires and quizzes where you're just asking variations of, would you be interested in a split payment if a lead generation, would you hire a lead generation company who would take a slightly lesser amount but have a commission structure and etc. So how important is that market research before you go and start transitioning and going, okay, I need to try this now, I need to try this now? Do you always do that market research before you make a big pivot like that?
Yeah, you know what, when things begin to go wrong, and I'm not saying they did, but if something like COVID happens and you're going to re-enter the market, market research is absolutely key. I mean, I went out and I must have spoken to 900 sales and marketing directors.
Wow.
I did those LinkedIn polls, which are bloody amazing.
Yeah.
And I just got an idea. I spoke to previous clients, partners, business owners, sales and marketing directors, and I just said, you know what, if you were, and this is not a sales pitch, if you were to outsource lead generation, what type of pricing structure would appeal to you? What type of marketing would you outsource? Is it telemarketing? Is it social media marketing? Is it e-marketing? Is it a combination of everything? Because until you're never going to have all the answers. And even once you've done the market research, you might not have one solid answer, but it'll give you an idea on sort of where the market lies, and what's going to work and what's not going to work. Never go in with your sort of your eyes closed guessing, because you're going to end up falling over. So I think market research is very important. Even if all you do is speak to 10 other business owners to get their opinion, Their opinion is most valuable. I remember the amount of times I picked up the phone and spoke to you, Adam. And I was sharing ideas with you, being a business owner. It's one of those things. You're not selling your services to the person, but that they might have an opinion. They might trigger a thought, which actually you've completely missed. And that could be a game changer for you. So market research was very, very important, and it's made us, what we are today. And without that market research, it just wouldn't have happened.
So I guess one or two last questions. When things are going good, it's great, right? But how do you get inspired, when things are going bad? And I think you mentioned before about family, and which I imagine is quite important to you, but what is that key thing which allows you to get inspired?
I think the thing that inspires me is, I don't know if it inspires the right word, but you know what? I literally take one day at a time. If I've hit rock bottom today, and I'm at my lowest point, tomorrow's only going to get better. Tomorrow's only going to get better. There's no point in sort of drowning your sorrows thinking, oh, this is it, it's game over, because you just take one day at a time. And things that inspire me, I look at what others are doing. I talk to colleagues. I talk to my partners. I talk to my clients even, I have a very transparent relationship with everyone. If things are not going well, I'll pick up the phone, and again, clients who are watching this will know exactly who they are. And I've picked up and I said, you know what, we've had a bad week. We've had a bad week. And actually they'll give you the encouragement that, Sam, you've been in such a great job for all these years. You're not going to be great every day. You're not going to be great every week. So talk to others. If you want inspiration, don't just sit there in a dark room. Just pick up the phone, talk to me, go have a coffee. Go have a coffee with someone, because they will inspire you.
Awesome. And last question, if you could speak to yourself 10 years ago and give yourself some advice, or you could speak to yourself 10 years from now and see where you've gone, which of the two would you do? Well, which of the one would you do?
I would go back 10 years and speak to the younger Sam. and I would give him, I'll probably give him one or two pieces of advice. The first one is something we've already touched on. Don't ramp up your overheads at the very beginning.
Interesting.
Take it easy. I was very, very excited to start building a team. And after I got my first 2 or 3 clients, I said, okay, that's it. We need 3-4 lead gen callers, where actually potentially I could have done it with 1. But it was that excitement. Sometimes you lose vision and sight. But again, it comes down to having that sales and marketing strategy that I keep going on about. So that's the advice that I would give. And the other advice I would give, again, something I've already touched on, is just take one day at a time. Yeah, don't plan 5 years ahead. It's good to do so, but literally come into work every day and give it your very best shot and take each day at a time. And I wish I could have gone back 10 years and told Sam, COVID's around the corner, mate. Yeah, be ready. So, yeah, but that didn't happen. But yeah, that's what I would say to myself.
Do you think, just following up on that, you said COVID wouldn't happen? I think people are so easy. Again, when you speak to people, I was too young at the time, but people are like, well, the financial crash of 2008 wouldn't happen. Do you think there's always going to be those massive events, say every decade, every other decade, which is going to seriously get rid of I know it sounds bad, but the weaker businesses or the weaker entrepreneurs, those businesses which just don't have the staying power? Or do you think that events like COVID are just a once in a lifetime or once in a century type event? And how do you prepare for like a financial crash? Or because you already see it at the minute, like I've seen it, the price of gold's going through the roof, the price of Rolexes and stuff like that, like things which aren't commodities, which aren't fiat currencies, aren't pounds, aren't sterling, aren't dollars. So a lot of people think, the next financial crash is just around the corner with crazy borrowing. So how do you then prep for that in, coming forward in your business now? Or is it just something you just have to take on the chin?
It's, I think there'll always be something that happens. I don't think we're going to ever go through anything like COVID,
really?
Where businesses were actually shut down, teams were furloughed, and businesses just couldn't go to the office, and things were just wiped away. I think it's very unlikely we'll see something like that again, but there will always be financial crashes. Markets will go up and down. People will spend money, they'll stop spending money, things will happen. But I guess what you need to do is there needs to be flexibility in your pricing structure.
Yeah.
There needs to be flexibility in your offering. There needs to be flexibility in the service that you provide. So, during COVID, we were saying to our clients, let's put the campaign on hold. Okay, let's wait until things pick back up again. The client's not going to lose money. It's going to be tough for us, but actually, by doing that, we're gaining confidence and we're not going to lose the client. So what we've done now as a business to sort of make ourselves bulletproof is just add that extra level of flexibility in to our contracts, into our pricing structure, because there'll always be something that happens, it's, this whole Ukraine-Russia situation, people are a little bit on edge on what's going to happen and how it's going to affect businesses. But they need to know that you are with them. Okay, you're not just selling them something. We're in it together. It's a partnership. As soon as they feel that, it's a win-win situation, Adam.
That's awesome, man. So obviously we'll finish it up. So if someone wants to get in contact with you or, wants to hire SLS, what do they do? Where can they find you? What's your address and that type of stuff?
Yeah. So visit our website. It's www.slsleadgen.com. As you guys have probably gathered, we're an outsourced lead generation company. We provide a complete risk-free and guaranteed service. It's always a win-win situation with us. You're never going to spend money with us and lose out. It's not going to happen. It's a guarantee that we offer. And we're probably one of the only lead gen companies that are able to offer that. It's because we're so confident in what we do. So visit our website, have a look at what we do, connect with me, Sam Naseer, on LinkedIn. If I can help, I will do my best.
That's awesome. So that sort of rounds it off for the first of the Ignite Inspire podcasts. Many more on our way. Thanks for listening, guys, and be sure to check out Sam Naseer.
Thank you very much. Cheers.